The chamber of the Galactic Conclave shimmered with crystalline arches that caught the glow of distant suns, their reflections bending like rivers of light across the polished obsidian floor. Here, in this arena of power, the fate of lesser worlds was debated and decided with the cold efficiency of empires that had long since forgotten mercy. Voices in 100 tones, some guttural, others mechanical, still others so soft they could barely be heard, merged into a discordant hum. At the center, on the raised platform reserved for Earth's envoy, a solitary man stood among titans who regarded him with poorly veiled disdain. Envoy Dravik had long grown accustomed to that look. He was not a warrior, not a commander, not even a man of great renown. He was simply the chosen face of a planet that no longer frightened anyone. His dark eyes remained steady as he endured the Chancellor's gaze, though his hands, clasped behind his back, trembled slightly from the weight of humiliation. Earth, once a name whispered in fear across star systems, was now treated as an afterthought. A relic. High Chancellor Kael's voice carried through the chamber like polished steel. The matter before us is simple. The Drael Dominion moves to expand along the neutral corridors. Worlds lacking defenders will fall in days. Yet Earth claims neutrality, while offering nothing in deterrence. Tell me, Envoy Dravik, what does your fragile world bring to this council, if not warriors? The words stung, though they were spoken with measured civility. Dravik straightened his shoulders and spoke with as much composure as he could gather. Earth offers its voice, its memory, and its counsel. We may lack the fleets of the Ventari, or the legions of the Kar, but we have known the fires of war. We know what is lost when civilizations treat conquest as destiny. A ripple of laughter swept the chamber, harsh and alien. Admiral Theros of the Kar, clad in his ceremonial armor of burnished bone and alloy, leaned forward with a sneer that revealed serrated fangs. Warriors? You speak as though Earth has any left. Your kind buried your steel generations ago. Your fleets rust, your soldiers vanish into history. If the Drael Dominion turned its eyes upon your pale sphere, you would fold before the first salvo. The contempt was deliberate, yet effective. Dravik's jaw tightened, but he held his ground. He knew any protest would sound like desperation, and desperation only confirmed weakness in the eyes of predators. The debate continued, circling around strategy and territories, until the Chancellor's tone shifted. There are whispers, Kael said, his golden eyes narrowing. Old tales that when Earth surrendered its armies to peace, it did not cast aside all of its weapons. That one of its champions was sealed away. Is this myth? Or is it arrogance pretending to be legend? The chamber quieted. Even Admiral Theros tilted his head, intrigued. Dravik had hoped the rumors would remain buried beneath centuries of dust, but now they were pulled into the harsh light of galactic scrutiny. He answered carefully, knowing each word would ripple far beyond this chamber. Legends persist among my people, Chancellor. That is all they are. The world you mock is no longer the world of warriors. Whatever champions once rose in humanity's name now lie in memory. The silence that followed was more dangerous than mockery. Some among the council leaned back in satisfaction, convinced Earth had nothing left to offer. Others, however, shared uneasy glances. Legends had power, and even a whisper of forgotten strength could unsettle the balance of fear. Theros broke the tension with a laugh that echoed like grinding metal. So, it is as I said. Earth is a museum, its people curators of their own tombs. If any champion of theirs still lives, then let him come forth. I would break him myself, as proof that your species is finished. Dravik did not answer. He lowered his gaze, not in submission, but to hide the flicker of thought he dared not reveal. For even as he denied the existence of Earth's forgotten warrior, he remembered passages buried in archives too ancient for casual eyes. He remembered symbols etched into stone, guarded by oaths that few still recalled. And though he told himself it was myth, a part of him whispered that it might not be. The conclave session ended with decrees of caution and promises of fleets, none of which would shield Earth when the Dominion advanced. As the delegates filed from the chamber, their footsteps echoing in the hollow grandeur, Dravik remained on the platform. The weight of his people's weakness pressed down on him, heavier than the stars themselves. He exhaled slowly and allowed his mask of composure to slip, just for a moment. Earth had no armies, no dreadnoughts, no warrior legions. But perhaps, just perhaps, it still had something the galaxy had forgotten. Something sealed away not in myth, but in silence. Dravik turned from the empty hall, his mind unsettled by a single, dangerous thought. If the whispers were true, if even one fragment of that legend endured, then Earth's last warrior might still walk again. And if he did, the galaxy would remember what it meant to fear humanity.
The descent into Earth's archives was a journey into shadows that most no longer cared to illuminate. Passed through cordons carved in ages when humanity had still stretched its grasp across the stars, when soldiers marched beneath banners rather than treaties. Dust layered the walls like a second skin, and the air carried the faint metallic scent of machines. Few came here now, fewer still dared to linger. He walked with a purposeful stride, though doubt gnawed at him with every step. What was he hoping to find? Proof that the legends were real, or reassurance that they were not. The council's mockery still echoed in his ears, yet beneath their scorn he had glimpsed fear of the possibility that humanity's past had left something unfinished. He stopped at a seal-walled door, its surface etched with symbols he had seen only in fragmentary records. Circles within circles crossed by jagged lines, a cipher of war and silence. His hand hovered above the access panel, hesitating until he forced himself to press it. The old system stirred reluctantly, gears grinding with the fatigue of centuries. The door parted, releasing a sigh of stale air as though exhaling secrets long buried. Inside the chamber stretched downward, a cathedral of steel and stone. Statues of armored men lined the walls, their faces carved with grim determination. Each represented an era of human warriors, from primitive soldiers with blades to generals who commanded fleets that once challenged empires. At the chamber's heart, encased in translucent stasis crystal, lay a single figure. Dross approached cautiously, his eyes scanning the figure suspended in the crystal like a relic in prayer. The man was still even in stillness, his frame marked by scars that time could not heal. His hair, dark and streaked with grey even when he was entombed, floated gently in the stasis field. Across his chest lay the sigil of Earth's last great army, a star fractured by flame. Breath caught. Here was the seal when not a tale told traceless children, but fresh, preserved against the erosion of centuries. He felt both awe and dread. Awe at the truth standing before him. Dread at the reason such a man had been locked away. A soft echo interrupted his thoughts. Turned sharply, spotting movement in the shadows above the statues. Shapes descended within, their bodies glinting with the chitinous sheen of assassins. Their mandibles clicked in anticipation, their blades catching the faint light of the chamber. Heart raced. They had followed him as he feared they might. They could not allow Earth even the hint of resurgence. With frantic hands, he reached for the activation console at the stasis pod, though uncertainty nearly paralyzed him. To wake was to unleash a man bred for war into a world that had chosen peace. Yet if he hesitated, the assassins would end him and Earth's last chance would vanish into silence. He struck the controls. The chamber trembled as ancient machinery roared to life. Energy coursed through conduits, bathing the crystal in searing light. The figure inside stirred, his fingers twitching as though grasping at weapons long since taken from him. The assassins leapt downward, blades paused to strike. Ducked behind the console, a desperate shield against the attackers, but he kept his gaze fixed on the pod. The crystal cracked with a sound like thunder, shards cascading onto the floor. A hand thrust outward, calloused and strong, dragging air into lungs that had not breathed for centuries. Dross awoke. The assassin struck, but movements were swift, almost instinctive. He seized one creature, twisting its blade away before shattering its carapace with a single blow. Another lunged, but ripped its weapon free and drove it into its thorax. The chamber filled with shrieks and the stench of alien ichor as the others hesitated, unnerved by the ferocity of a man who had only just awoken. When the last assassin lay broken, silence returned. Stood at the center, chest heaving, his gaze sweeping the room with the sharpness of a predator. His eyes deep and set on. For a long moment neither spoke. Felt words catch in his throat, but he forced them out. Dross, you live. The warrior's voice was rough, as though dragged from the grave. Who disturbs my silence? His gaze fell to the shattered assassins. And why does blood greet me before words? Steadied himself. I am envoy. The galaxy believes Earth has no warriors left. They believe humanity broken, irrelevant. The Dominion gathers strength and the Council marks us. But I sought you because I feared they were right. Expression hardened. You woke me for politics. He spat the word like venom. I was sealed away to end the cycle of slaughter. Do you not know what I am? What I've done? I know enough, replied quietly. Enough to know you were the last. Enough to know you may be the only hope we have left. Fists clenched, veins standing out along his forearms. He turned from, pacing among the statues as though searching for answers in the stone faces of forgotten warriors. His voice dropped, a low rumble. Hope. You mistake me for a savior. I am a weapon. Nothing more. Did not flinch. Perhaps. But even a weapon can remind the galaxy that Earth.
Kaelen sat upon the cold steps at the base of the statues, the glow of the broken stasis chamber casting fractured light across his scarred face. He had awakened into a world that seemed both alien and hauntingly familiar. The silence pressed on him, not the silence of peace, but the silence of uncertainty, and he could feel the weight of centuries in his bones. His breath came steady now, though every inhalation tasted of dust and disuse. Dravik lingered nearby, hesitant, as though speaking too soon might shatter the fragile balance between them. At last Kaelen broke the stillness. How long was I sealed? His voice carried the tone of a man who already feared the answer. Dravik lowered his head. 300 years. Perhaps more. Records differ. Kaelen's hand tightened against his knee, the leather of his ancient gauntlet creaking. And in all that time, Earth abandoned its strength. His eyes narrowed, filled with both grief and scorn. We fought wars that carved scars into the galaxy. We paid in blood, so deep the stars themselves seemed stained. And what has become of it? You cower behind words while enemies gather at your borders. Dravik's jaw clenched at the accusation, though he knew it was true. Peace was the only way forward. Humanity was exhausted. We chose survival without swords, believing that if we laid them down, others might do the same. Others, Kaelen said bitterly, never do the same. The exchange hung between them, heavy with the irreconcilable divide of their worlds. Yet Dravik did not retreat. I came here because the Council believes Earth to be finished. They say we have no warriors left. And they may be right, unless you stand with us. Kaelen rose, his height casting a shadow across the envoy. He moved with the fluidity of one who had not forgotten battle, every step purposeful, every gesture precise. Yet his eyes carried the weariness of a man who had buried more comrades than he could name. You mistake necessity for willingness. I did not sleep because I wished to. I was bound here, sealed away because I was a danger even to my own people. And you would wake me again, to spill more blood on a galaxy already drowning in it. Before Dravik could answer, the faint hum of energy prickled through the air. Kaelen's instincts sharpened instantly, his head turning toward the vault entrance. The smell of ozone drifted inward, followed by the metallic click of foreign weapons. From the shadows emerged more Drael assassins, drawn by the signal of the awakening, their mandibles glinting in the faint light. Dravik stumbled back, fear rushing through him, but Kaelen did not hesitate. He stepped forward, unarmed yet unshaken, his body coiled with the readiness of a predator. The assassins moved as one, their motions swift and precise, honed for killing. The first struck low, its blade aimed for Kaelen's chest. He sidestepped, seizing the creature's arm with such force that the limb shattered beneath his grip. Using the momentum, he hurled the assassin into another, sending both crashing against the stone statues. Another leapt from above, mandibles spread wide, but Kaelen caught it midair, twisting its body with a crack that echoed like thunder. Dravik watched in stunned silence. There was no hesitation, no wasted movement. Every strike Kaelen delivered was final, efficient, the result of muscle memory carved into him by wars long past. Yet even as the Drael fell, Kaelen's expression betrayed no triumph, only grim inevitability. When the last assassin collapsed in a broken heap, Kaelen stood amid the wreckage, chest rising and falling, his fists dripping with alien ichor. His gaze returned to Dravik, who struggled to find his voice. "You fight as though the centuries never touched you," Dravik whispered. Kaelen shook his head. "The centuries touched me more than you know. I did not fight those assassins. The war inside me did." Dravik stepped forward cautiously, emboldened by necessity. The galaxy needs that war. The Dominion spreads like a plague, and the Council does nothing but argue. They believe Earth incapable. You can prove them wrong. You can remind them who we are. Kaelen's eyes darkened, memories of battlefields flickering in their depths, cities reduced to ash, comrades screaming their last into the void, victories that felt like defeats. His voice was quiet, but each word carried the weight of conviction. "You speak of reminders. Do you know what I remember? The cries of children burned in sieges. The faces of enemies who looked too much like us. I remember that every war begins with a cause and ends with a grave." Dravik did not recoil. His resolve, though shaken, remained firm. "And I remember that when humanity still fought, no enemy dared to mock us. If you choose silence again, Earth will fade into dust, remembered only as a world that surrendered. But if you rise, even if blood follows, the galaxy will know we endure." Kaelen turned away, pacing through the statues once more, as though searching for counsel in the stone visages of men who had died centuries before him. Their hollow eyes seemed to judge him, or perhaps to call him. He felt the old weight pressing against his chest, the call to violence that had once defined him. His hand rested against the hilt of a shattered sword carved into one of the statues, and for a moment he saw himself reflected there, not as he was, but as he had been. At last he spoke, his tone subdued, almost weary. "I am no savior. I am no leader. I am what your people feared I would always be, a blade. And blades cut, whether for justice or ruin." Dravik exhaled, sensing the fragile thread of acceptance beneath Kaelen's resistance. "Then let the galaxy feel that cut once more. Not for conquest, but for survival." Kaelen's jaw tightened. He lifted his gaze to the chamber ceiling, as though peering beyond the stone to the stars waiting above. The Drael Dominion's shadow stretched across those stars, indifferent, relentless. He could almost hear the drums of war again, calling him back into the storm he thought he had escaped. For the first time since his awakening, Kaelen allowed a trace of resolve to enter his voice. "If I walk this path again, it will not be for your council or their politics. It will be because humanity must not be forgotten." Dravik nodded, his chest tightening with both relief and dread. He knew what this decision meant, not only for the galaxy but for Kaelen himself. The Sealed One had been roused, and though he bore the scars of countless battles, his presence alone could shift the balance of fear. The silence that followed was no longer uncertain. It was the silence of something inevitable beginning to stir.
The council chamber blazed with brilliance, its crystalline walls pulsing with light drawn from suns scattered across the world. Delegates filled their elevated thrones, their voices overlapping in sharp tones as they debated how to answer the Dominion's advance. None expected what happened next. The chamber doors parted and Dross strode forward, his presence cutting through the noise with the precision of a blade. His scarred face was calm, but his eyes burned with the weight of centuries. Guests rippled among the delegates. Some leaned forward in disbelief while others recoiled as though confronted by a ghost they had prayed never to see again. Admiral Tyros rose from his throne, his armored frame gleaming beneath the lights. "Impossible," he said. "The seal van is myth. A story told to frighten children." Steps echoed across the chamber floor until he stood at the center. He did not bow, nor did he wait for permission. His voice carried without effort, each word shaped by conviction rather than volume. "You mark Earth as though we are finished. You laugh as though our time has passed. But I tell you this, humanity's fire has not died. You thought us broken, yet here I stand." High Chancellor studied him with narrowed eyes, measuring the truth behind the legend. "If you are what you claim, then you were sealed away for a reason. Why should this council accept the return of a weapon too dangerous even for his own kind?" Did not flinch. Because danger is the only language the Dominion understands. Words do not stop fleets. Peace does not hold back fire. I am not here to serve your council or bend to its politics. I am here because Earth will not go quietly into ash. Standing at the chamber's edge, felt his heart surge with pride and dread in equal measure. He had hoped would speak with force, but the power in his words struck like thunder, silencing even the most arrogant of voices. Tyros sneered, unwilling to let fear take root. "If you claim to be Earth's champion, then prove it. The Dominion approaches even now. Show us you are more than a relic awakened to pasture before frightened diplomats." The chamber shifted, delegates murmuring in uneasy anticipation. Gaze flicked to who gave a faint nod. The decision had already been made. Turned back to Tyros, his tone steady. "Then bring me a fleet. I will show you what a relic can do." Hours later, stood upon the bridge of a forgotten human vessel, its hull scarred and its systems barely clinging to life. Around him, a handful of other ships gathered, rusted destroyers, outdated frigates, and a single battered carrier. They were remnants of a time long past, manned by volunteers who still remembered what it meant to fight beneath Earth's banner. Moved beside him, his eyes scanning the fractured fleet. "This is all we have left. Enough to delay, perhaps, but not to win." Lips curled into something that was not quite a smile. "War is not won by numbers alone. It is won by will. If they expect Earth to cower, then let them be broken by defiance." The alert klaxons blared, sensors detecting the Dominion's vanguard. Sleek ships of black yellow pierced the void, their formations tight and merciless. Against them, the human fleet looked fragile, already on the edge of ruin. Yet presence steadied the men on every deck. His voice carried through the channels with unwavering command. "Hold your lines. Do not flinch. Every second we stand is a second they will not forget." The battle began like a storm breaking across calm seas. The Dominion unleashed torrents of plasma fire, tearing into human shields with brutal efficiency. Ships buckled and burned, but Eordans came swift, turning chaos into precision. He maneuvered the fleet like a conductor guiding an orchestra, using the enemy's strength against them. Ambushes erupted where the Dominion expected weakness, feints lured them into traps carved from desperation and resolve. On the bridge, gripped the rail as explosions lit the world. "You're outnumbered 10 to 1. How can this hold? Eyes never left the battlefield. Because they fight with arrogance. We fight with memory. Every man who falls today carries the weight of 8,000 years behind him. That is what they will face. The Dominion pressed harder, but the human fleet refused to break. When frigate engines failing hurled itself into the pathway cruiser, detonating in a blaze that crippled the enemy ship. Another crew, knowing their reactor would not last, turned their vessel into a spear piercing through a squadron before shattering into fragments. Each sacrifice etched fear into the Dominion eyes. When the Dominion finally withdrew and willing to squander more ships on what they thought would be an easy conquest, silence fell across the human channels. The fleet was in ruins, but it still lived. Stood tall at the center and bowed his presence, proof that humanity's fire had not been extinguished. In the aftermath, as survivors tended to their wounded and repaired what could be salvaged, approached him. You've done what no one believed possible. The galaxy saw. They will remember this day.